Okay, so we've covered skill 1 for discovery, to allow yourself to bumble along, to allow yourself to make mistakes, which is something that our advisors are going to say, don't do it. But be willing to do it, to leave your comfort zone and take bold steps to discover what you care about. And that brings us to the second skill, which is taking a bold step. How do we do this? How do we have the courage to leave our comfort zone and try something new? And here's the deal, folks. If you want something new in your life, you can't keep repeating what you've done before because you always get what you've gotten. So if we want something new, we're going to need to do something new. But the good news is courage to do something new isn't something you possess. It's actually expressed at any given moment in your action. It's not an internal attribute. It's like, think of a time when you felt afraid, like you might fail or somebody might reject you, and you still showed up anyway, right? That's courage. It's the action of showing up and being willing to have the distress that goes along with it. That's courage. So this is the really important step that will kind of bring DNAV all together for you, is this idea of willingness. Willingness to have distress. What we're going to do is we're going to flip the script, the societal script, on its head. Instead of saying, I'm going to try and avoid feeling distress, we're actually going to choose distress in the service of what we care about. So this is because we're distressed already about lots of stuff we don't care about, right? So now we're going to focus on what we care about. And so how do we choose to feel distress? How can we make this willingness, you can call it a step or a leap? How do we make this a choice? The first thing is to recognize is that it is a choice. That it's a question of, am I willing to have distress in order to do something? And it's completely valid to say no. So let's say it's getting together with an old friend you haven't seen for 20 years. You never really liked that person. Well, it's very distressing to you. You might be perfectly right in your right to say, no, I don't want to do that. Or this isn't important enough. I don't need to go and tell my neighbor that I don't approve of how they do their lawns because it's distressing and unimportant. So the first choice you have when it comes to your distress is choosing to say yes or no, and no's a valid choice. But we know this, that people who are happy and successful tend to say yes quite a bit to willingness. So let's say we do find something that you want to say yes to. Let's say it's something like beginning a new exercise routine. Okay? So your first choice is yes or no. And I'll illustrate willingness to my own example. So like I said in an earlier video, I had stopped exercising for a long time. And so I wanted to exercise, and the first thing I thought of was going to the gym. Believe it or not, this is a very distressing move for 2 reasons. First, I thought I didn't have any time. Do any of you have that experience when it comes to taking care of yourself, that you just feel like you don't have time? Just notice that as distress and as your advisor saying stuff. But that showed up for me very strongly. I don't have time. And the second thing was I felt self-conscious going to the gym because I thought I would be in the corner lifting these pink barbells and everybody would see me and it'd be really embarrassing. So this illustrates a second aspect of willingness, that I get to choose the size of the step. So I could have taken a huge step, which for me at that time would have been to take an hour to go to the gym. That would have been incredibly stressful because I would have thought, oh, I'm not getting my work done. And everybody's looking at me and I'm weak and I'm using these pink barbells. So that for me would be a jump. Let's say it's a jump of 10. I could lower it to a jump of 5 by saying, well, look, I'll work out in my backyard for an hour. But that would still be too distressing to me because it's still too long. So what I settled on would be like a jump of 2. And you can see the diving board image here is an illustration of you choosing the size of the jump. I chose a 2, which for me was just to work out 15 minutes, just a tiny step. 15 minutes in the backyard where nobody can see me, okay? So that I was willing to say yes to. So that was my choice. How big is the jump? Yes, I'm willing to make this small jump. And here's the interesting thing that happens with discovery and saying yes to willingness, is that the months you say yes, you start to interact with the world in a different way. Now you're learning through experience. Now the world is guiding you instead of your advisor, your internal voice. And what I discovered was, wow, this is really good for me. I feel much better. I feel less stress when I am exercising. So here's another interesting thing about willingness and discovery, is that it changes. So now it was like, well, this is too easy. You know what? Not only do I have 15 minutes, I have an hour, because this is too important. I'm actually more productive at work when I exercise. So now my willingness jump is changing. Now an hour is just a normal thing. So I decided I would take an hour and I would go to the gym. But I decided that I would go to the gym at a time when nobody would see me, because I was still distressed about, I don't know if you feel this way when you work out, but you don't always want people around to see you. So I thought I'd go to one of these 24-hour gyms and go super early before anybody got there. So my willingness jump changed to now that was like more like a 5. I'm going to take an hour. I'm going to go to the gym. I got a gym membership. I go super early in the morning. I get there at 5. I open the door to this 24-hour fitness gym. And despite what my advisor had told me, not only were there loads of people in the gym, but the people in the gym at that time are the incredibly serious bodybuilders. They're like the construction workers and people who work manual labor who think that that's not enough physical activity, and they're building muscle and they're huge. So when I opened that door, I had to make this willingness choice again. And this is another aspect of discovery. It's a choice you got to make again and again. Okay, am I willing to have this distress and look like a weak guy in order to serve my value of getting fitter and healthier? And I decided yes. And then from that point on, it got easier. I realized nobody's actually looking at me. But I only did that, not through my advisor, but through the actual experience. And so that's just an example of me grading the size of the jump. So the important thing for you in discovery is it doesn't matter how big the jump is. You've got to begin, if you want to change your life and you want to improve it, and I hope you do, because we should always be working to improve, is that you have to do something new. And it can be something small, or it can be something huge. You can say, I'm going to run the Boston Marathon, or I'm going to run around my block twice. I'm going to write a novel, or I'm just going to write a short story. You choose. I'm going to confront my worker and tell them that they have been treating me badly all this time, versus, I might just, raise the issue in a casual conversation very tangentially. So you choose the size of the jump, and that gives you choice. And what you've done is you flip the script now. Instead of stress being something that just happens to you, you're not just doing it because it's something you don't care about. You're choosing to feel the stress in the service of what you care about, what's important to you.